You're listening to the Salty Sex Cast with Pamela and Mariah.
Yeah, and what's puberty?
The sex education you wish you had in high school.
Maybe a diagram will help.
Hello, and welcome to episode 65 of the Salty Sex Cast. It is Mariah here, and I am joined with another podcaster in the area. You know, local friends, we got to stick together. So I was introduced to Brian Helbach early on with the IGY622 podcast, which stands for I've Got Your Six, and then 22 is the number of veterans who commit suicide. I'm sorry, I'm not.
No, commit suicide every day.
Yeah. So it's just such an important message that you have to share. And I think that's why, you know, your podcast, the community that's around you, it's a nonprofit now, which I think is a nonprofit fantastic. Now. Yeah. So much growth around this area and around this idea of just supporting people who have come back, who servicemen and women, first responders, so not just soldiers.
Yep.
Who are, you know, experiencing some adverse effects of the life that the service that they've provided to everybody else, right? So you talk on your show about so many things that people are going through. It's fantastic for them to finally get that chance to share their story, for one, because sometimes they just never get it, or people will ask insensitive questions. So it's kind of a safe place, right?
Yep.
But I've asked you to be on our show today to kind of talk about how, you know, what happens to relationships during this time. You guys don't serve in a vacuum. You usually have a partner or, you know, a spouse or something that still is just as affected as some of these things that happen. So I'd love for you to, you know, kind of give us a little bit of rundown of, you know, your service and a little bit of your background for our listeners.
Okay, so I joined the Army National Guard here in Utah in 2003. Went to boot camp at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for combat engineer. Got home and it was April. My unit was already deployed, so I got attached to a construction unit. And then a couple months later, we were mobilized and on our way to Iraq. So I missed, essentially, my son had just turned 1 in, you know, when I left to boot camp. And so that was 2003. I got home mid-2005, so I missed all that time from 2003 to 2005 with all my kids growing up, but especially my youngest.
Wow.
So that was a little weird.
Hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just weird.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's sad is when we got home from our deployment, he didn't want anything to do with me. So we're, you know, you get off the plane and see everybody there, all the family and wives are coming and hugging you and spouses loving on you, but the young kids are just screaming because they're afraid of whoever this stranger is trying to hold them.
The stranger in this weird getup.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, strange uniform, and yeah, they've heard stories, but they don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, it's maybe like a celebrity, you know, you see pictures, you hear stories, everyone's talking about who you are, but they've like never actually met you or like remember meeting you.
Yeah.
Wow, stranger danger for sure.
I was in Leonard Wood in 2005.
Were you?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I was there for 88 Mike School.
Nice. Yeah, I'd been there a couple times. I don't love it. It was where I first learned of,
I don't think anybody loves it.
What chiggers were. I didn't even know what chiggers were until I went there, and I'm like, what in the hell are all these bites all over my body? And like, oh yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, I went to Fort Sill for basic, and then they flew me to Leonard Wood. And I remember when they got me to Leonard Wood, like at first I was stunned. I was like, this is a fucking cheerleading camp. And then, then you discover the bugs and the humidity, and you're like, get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a long deployment by itself, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So yeah, the deployment. So the boot camp, you know, I say I missed essentially 2003 to 2005, but my deployment was about 16 months from start to finish. So that was the long part. I was home for a few months in 2003 in between getting home from boot camp and then deploying. So,
but you'd miss those. Like, I mean, at that point in time, you said your son was so young, no formative memories happened around you.
Yeah.
And then gone for 16 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how many kids? You said
So we have
youngest?
4. So
Four.
my wife has 2 kids from her previous marriage. I have a daughter from a previous relationship, and then we have our son together.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're gone, and she's keeping.
She's
house.
holding down the fort.
Yeah.
She's working graveyards at the time, and
Yeah, because childcare isn't cheap.
No.
So you have to get creative when you're essentially a single parent.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we both worked at the same company at the time. I worked days, she worked nights. So we would hand the kids off.
Yep.
So that way,
My parents did that too. Yeah.
4 kids daycare, forget it. I don't know how people
It's cheaper
afford
to
it.
stay home at that point.
100%.
Yeah. So, and how long were you guys married before you joined the military or together?
We were not married before I joined. We found out we were mobilizing on December 17th or December 18th, rather, was the day we federalized. So we had to be married before that if something were to happen for her to get the benefits.
Oh my goodness.
So we totally loved living together single, had a household. I mean, we both do great on tax returns. We're like, but if something happens, I'm not going to get any
protection.
benefits. So we actually got married on Cable 93.
Nice.
December 17th of 2003, we were on channel 2, 4, 5, and 13 news. So it was a neat little wedding, but
Hey, better than my Relief Society room shotgun wedding. So you're at least a little bit on there. That's awesome. So how long had your relationship? How long had you guys been together before?
3 years.
And was the decision to go in the military kind of together, or was it like, I'm going to go, I have this pull, or is it kind of like forced? I would love to hear a little bit of that because.
So it definitely wasn't a joint decision.
Okay.
9/11 happened.
Yeah.
So that was 2001. And after 9/11, I just had something needed to change. I was missing something in my life. I just felt a void. My wife wasn't a big fan, but she supported it.
Yeah.
Obviously, or else I would have never joined. But so yeah, she supported it, and yeah, it was just a couple years. We'd been together 3 years.
Okay. So I mean, you still had an established relationship.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, we're barely married and I'm leaving, or, just started dating or something and then leaving. Because that's equally, I don't know. What's harder, having established relationship, having a chunk of time, and then trying, or like, we're still really new, so when I come home, it's still really new. So I don't know.
I don't know what would be easier. I think it's going to be hard either way.
It's going to be hard. Yeah.
But yeah, we had been in our own house for 2 years, living the quote unquote Utah married life, the common law married. But yeah, we finally got married in 2003.
I actually broke up with my girlfriend when I joined the Army because I didn't want to be tied down when I left.
I
And
Dear John to somebody.
Well, I kept, that's what I was afraid of. I was afraid of the Dear John, and I was like, hey, like, you're awesome, and if you're around when I get back, cool. But like, away I go. And 9/11 happened while I was in school, and like, so basically the moment I could join the Army out of high school, like, I jumped in because of 9/11. Yeah.
Well, so I'll share tiny pieces of that. It wasn't a crazy long relationship. We weren't really close, but I was kind of like, this distance thing, and I want to be a committed partner for you, and I see that I cannot be, so it would be better for me to say I cannot be than for me to try to drag it out longer. So that was my experience, very, very, very young.
Yeah.
And
There was something relieving about being in basic training and not worrying about that letter coming.
because you
Yeah.
didn't have anyone to.
I just saw, I saw what it did to some of the guys, right? And generally in basic training, they're younger, they're, and they're 18, 19, 20. I mean, obviously it's a little spread out, but, they're younger guys. And when some of them got those letters, they didn't see a path forward in their lives.
Yeah.
No, he was done with basic training and everything. And then we kind of like were saying that we'll be broken up kind of thing. And then he was deployed, and then we were able to talk and still like support each other more on a friend than a romantic. I think it was a lot easier for both of us. And when he came back, it wasn't that pressure again to we now have to pick
Yeah.
up on a relationship. It was kind of like, no, we both went in separate directions. We're okay because we already were there. So that was my experience. But so you're on this deployment and wife's holding down the fort and everything. How was, it takes so much emotional, mental, just that emotional intelligence to have a healthy relationship when you're together every day is already hard. So when you're gone, do you feel like you were able to put anything in it, or was it just really survival mode? I've got to do my job. This is what I'm here for. I will try when I can. Kind of where was that energy?
There was a lot of resentment that started to build up during deployments because you call home and obviously life happens and then the kids are struggling here or this. So it's just chaotic on the phone and they're just pissed off or whatever it is. And rightfully so. But I'm sitting here going, you have no idea what I'm going through. Like your problems are so minuscule to what I'm dealing with. Like I just don't care to hear it. And it's the wrong outlook to have. And I can look back at it now and be like, holy crap, I was way off. I was completely insensitive. And so, yeah, that would be one thing I would tell people. And I actually had a guest of an Army wife on the podcast. And it wasn't until hearing it from somebody else, not my wife, because I've heard it from my wife for 15 years, right? That I've been out. And I'm just like, I don't relate why you're having such a hard time or whatever. But hearing it from another person, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was so wrong in so many ways. And I apologize to my wife left and right. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
You just don't see it when you're that close. And it's hard because then you're like, you're telling me I'm doing this thing wrong, but can you not see this whole thing, which she can't see?
Yep.
It is out of sight, not to say out of sight, out of mind, but everything is like only kind of maybe a few pictures, maybe a little bit of description, but until you're actually there, you really have no clue what it's like. And so I'm sure that was very much, and the stressors of home life are not as lethal as the stressors you feel when you're actually like deployed, right? So different stressors, but it still works on your brain the same way. So,
well, to add on top of all that too is like, just because it's a good time for you to call doesn't mean it's a good time for them to answer, or vice versa.
Oh, I remember 4 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like you get these. I feel like there's a lot of frustration in the fact that the communication's already difficult. Let alone, I don't understand what my wife is going through because she's dealing with the household on her own, and she doesn't understand what I'm going through because, well, I just got my ass chewed out for 45 minutes for something that, could have been life-threatening, or, I've been running all day up and down a dirt hill with a rifle practicing the same exercise over and over again for tomorrow's mission or whatever. And I think I was fortunate in the sense that, like, even though I did all the stuff to get ready for the deployment because I had an injury, I couldn't deploy. And like, I remember feeling so offended that I didn't get to deploy. Yeah. And then like coming home hurt because my friends were there without me and I wasn't there to take care of them. And like, I brought that part of that, like just sort of feeling like I let those people down back to my relationship. Yeah.
Well, and that's a real thing that I didn't really know existed until I started the podcast and talking to different people, that the feeling that their service was less than or not as adequate as it could be because they couldn't deploy for one reason or another or something that happened in it. There's a lot of people that really struggle with that.
Yeah, I don't call it post-traumatic stress. I call it post-traumatic boredom. Yeah. Is what it is to me. And it's like, I did all the stuff, and then my friends, when they come back and they're truly hurt or truly stressed, and you're just like, oh man, I wasn't there for you guys and I should have been there for you guys. Yep. Like that can be difficult in itself to deal with. And then trying to translate that emotion to your significant other and like explain to them, like, this is why I'm hurting right now. It just doesn't compute. Yeah. Well,
and I think going back to some of the struggles while and you hit it right on the head. If I call home and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You can't answer the phone. Like what? Like, and then, because all you've gone your whole mission, and whether it was a good mission or a bad mission or whatever, you want to call home if you get a chance, and you call and you just can't get a hold of them, and you can't get a hold of them. So instantly, this was before social media was big. I think it was MySpace. So I'm telling my age a little bit. But so there wasn't the social media where you could just see, oh, they were online 10 minutes ago or whatever it is. So obviously your mind wanders. But on the flip side, your spouse is going, well, you're there with all your friends. You're dealing with this with all your friends. So you get to have this big party time and, having the misconception of what it really is. But at the end of the day, you find ways to make it fun with your brothers and sisters you're with. So, I mean, it kind of is a party, but it's work, but it's
also, you never get private time. Like, you're always with somebody.
Yep.
Well, and sometimes for me, it was easy to forget home existed.
Yeah.
Because you get in this kind of like tangled mess of like, we've been working our ass off for 18 hours. And so, yeah, when we get done, we're all gathered around with our cell phone filming ants crawling over a burning cigarette butt. For whatever reason, that's the most entertaining thing you've ever done in your whole life. And we're all laughing and partying. And then you get back and you see text messages or phone calls that you missed. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I have a life outside of this. Shit, I forgot.
Yeah.
And then the guilt. Like I didn't call you when we usually have this planned call. Or I'm going to get through this tough day because I know I have that call at the end of the day. And then when that call doesn't go well, that's a huge letdown. That's a big thing. And frustration would come on, and then resentment on the other line of like, this is how you call me when we don't get to see. Okay.
Exactly. And I'm just sitting here, obviously I'm one-sided at the time, and I'm like, I just don't get it. Like, how do you not drop everything, right? Like, so selfish of me. And I know it 100%, but I mean, that was my mentality. Like, I don't know when I'm going to get a call. When it's going to be weird times, so you just got to be ready. But
I think there's also a degree of it to where you get so used to being task oriented. The mission is XYZ, and to accomplish that, I have to do ABC. And so then to you, the moment the phone rings, you can switch from whatever task you're on to answering that phone or talking to your spouse.
That is your task.
That is now the task.
Yes.
So we've now changed missions. And I think that, and I saw this a lot, especially at like family days when in fact, I quit bringing my family to family days because they didn't understand that military mentality where this is now the mission. And so everything has shifted to the mission. And whether that mission is, doing your job as a soldier or talking to your wife on the phone, when the objective comes up, you can then focus on it really hard. But, looking back at my previous relationship, that doesn't exist in most people. And so when I'd call and she couldn't shift roles, like, yo, what the fuck? Like, I'm so capable of flipping this switch. Why aren't you flipping this switch? And you can probably relate to this as 100%. As a National Guardsman, because I was in the reserves, as drill would approach and I had to go in and be a soldier, there was this, bam, I'm now a soldier. I've gone from what I do at home to what I do in the military.
You have to shelve all of that from home to perform.
But then
to be there.
The difficult thing, I think, for my ex-wife was coming down off of that took days versus that immediate switch. And so I'd come home and speak to her like she was one of my soldiers or a mission objective.
Regimented, have the task at hand kind of thing, not a casual like, okay.
Yeah, and like your average person, like if I were to take you to go do something, and let's say we were just going to go in the backyard and shoot a black powder rifle, and I would say, this is what you do. And then if you look at me and you say, well, why? Well, because I fucking said so, right? Like, there's no, like, don't ask why.
Yeah, don't tell me your feelings behind it.
I'm the subject matter expert, and you'll do as I told you. And that's the example you're taught in the military.
100%.
You don't ask your drill sergeants why. You do what the fuck they tell you. You don't ask your platoon sergeant why. You do what the fuck they tell you. And that doesn't translate well in a relationship, especially if your spouse is not a soldier, right?
100, yeah.
I mean, I can see it in your face. You're like, yeah, fuck yeah.
I mean that's what ultimately almost cost me my marriage. In 2008, I think it was, before I got out. Maybe it was 2009. I can't remember, but it was that same thing. And it was my dad he pulled me aside to the neighbor's house, and I've talked about it numerous times on my show, but pulled me to the neighbor's house. He said, you're an asshole. Like, I don't know who you are, but you're going to lose your kids. You're going to lose your wife. Like, Like you're not healthy. And I was pissed. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy going to tell me, you know, you don't freaking know. You don't know anything. And I took a long, hard look in the mirror that night and I was like, holy shit, I'm treating my kids as if they're soldiers. They're, you know, because I'm an NCO at the time. Mm-hmm. Like, if I say it's dinner time, it's dinner time. And you're going to eat all of your vegetables. Like, I put this on your plate. You will finish it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Like, it is what it is. If you don't like it, tough shit, stay here all night. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's broccoli, right?
But you have to be taught to not care, to do your job well. So now you have to flip that switch back and forth. That's not fair on anyone to ask for.
For our listeners who don't know, an NCO is a non-commissioned officer.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So generally you would be responsible for, you know, a group of soldiers as an NCO.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know what IGY meant. So I'm like, you guys, I need to decipher all these things. SEX. I know what that means.
Acronyms are like,
right.
It's a bread and butter thing.
Oh yeah. That's why you still use them. And I'm just like, Brady, I love you, but I have no clue what you're talking about.
I love deciphering acronyms that I don't know. And then people being like, how'd you figure that out? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, just give me the context of the subject that this acronym's coming from, and I'll probably be able to figure it out.
Yeah, just the context, and then like if you can, read it to me phonetically, please.
That's funny. So other people were noticing that behavior too, and it was kind of just really affecting. And you probably just saw it where it was like, why isn't my spouse seeing this, or how do you see it when that was happening?
I didn't see it. I didn't have any clue to it. I just thought, you know, because my older two kids were pushing their teenage years. So it's like, okay, they're just being asshole teenagers because that's what teenagers do. And then my youngest, he was 4 or 5 years old at the time. Well, that's just they just try to find the boundaries, how far they can push, how far. So I don't see it as I'm being an ass. And then I sit back and I look at it and I'm like, my poor kids. I feel so bad that was their earliest memories of me. Like, this is who I was. I was a complete ass, and I feel I've changed.
Yeah.
My oldest son, we clashed all through his upbringing just because it was like just tension. So obviously, I wasn't his biological father. Mm-hmm. So there was that tension. But then it was just an ass. You know, I was an ass, and then he was an ass, and then it made me be a bigger ass, and then he would be a bigger ass, and it was just butted heads for so many years. And then he ended up joining the military. And
that's funny. I was just going to tell you that my dad is an Army Ranger who served in Vietnam. And so like I remember some of my earliest memories were like exactly what you talked about. And over time my mom softened him, and I don't think he ever got like professional help for him. But the good news is, and you've probably already figured this out, but those relationships can heal.
Oh yeah,
and
we're older, like best friends now. So, and I love it.
Yeah. And take every opportunity when he does something in the military to congratulate him and be proud of him. He'll love it.
Yep.
Every relationship has ebbs and flows. I mean, it's never static. You can heal from, you can grow from it. You can apologize. You can realize, hey, that wasn't great. That wasn't great for either one of us. Maybe I'm sure, I don't know. If your wife feels like looking back now, she feels like she could have done something different, or how she saw a few things or whatever. But
and that's kind of where the phase we're in now. Yeah. We just started couples counseling. Mm-hmm. I spent the last 16 years. I've seen a memory on Facebook that we got home from Iraq around this time 15 years ago, or 9. I don't remember what the dates were, but I spent all that time not telling her anything, shielding her from everything, because I feel a type of way of the things that I did. So I try to protect, right? So instantly right off the bat, I got home and I was having some stuff on my mind, and I tried to explain to her what was going on. And she said, I don't want to talk about it. It makes me feel a kind of way. So I took that as shut the door. She shut the door on it. I can't talk about this to her. Deal with it myself.
Well, and there's a skill, especially I think being a guardsman or a reservist, in compartmentalizing that part of your life. Because like I said, it was easy to switch to soldier mode and it took a time to come off of it. But then, like, you have to be able to pull those tools out in a rapid pace to get up to speed for the mission, whatever that mission is. And I think it's really easy when you look at, you know, the way that you communicate in the military, it gets ingrained in you really deeply because lives are at stake.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I mean, like, I never took that deployment. I never had to go deploy, or got to, is what I usually say. But that way of communicating with the people around you, you know that lives are at stake. And so it's very brisk, immediate communication. And
emotions are pulled from it.
yeah, it's not that I'm mad at you, but you're going to do what I fucking told you because we got shit to do. Like, we're moving on with our lives.
Yeah, the lethality is just higher, you know, and then everyday conversation.
And it's really easy, like you said, that, you know, like once you thought the door was shut, then you just sort of like put it in its box. And then, like, if I need this box, I'll open this box, but I'll just set it aside. The box is never out of sight, though. No,
it's not. And it was a lot of shoving down, compartmentalizing, and it got to a point where there was just no more room. October of 2020, I was on my way up Ogden Divide. I was 3 turns away from rolling my truck off. I knew right where I was going, but I was done. I couldn't handle it anymore. I've worn a mask for too long, tried to make everybody else happy and put on the facade of, oh, I'm happy, yay, look at me. But inside, I feel like I'm screaming to everybody, like, look, I need help. Like, I've tried to go to the VA, no help. So I was like, holy shit, I'm just done. I can't do it this way. It's an accident, you know, and my family will be taken care of, and I won't have to be in pain anymore. And luckily I got turned around and thought the next day I woke up and went, okay, I cannot get this dark again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very low.
What can I do? And, sorry. I thought back to when I went on the other side of the beehive, January or February of 2020, to raise money for a service dog for me. And I gave them just a fraction of what I deal with on a daily basis with PTSD. But I left and I had more room. I had more room to compartmentalize. So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I got all this weight off my shoulders. So there's got to be people that are struggling.
Yeah.
So it was, okay, well, I now don't have a purpose. Like, my purpose when I was in the military was you're mission oriented.
You have a job. It's written. It's black and white.
There's no question. And I got out, and you know, I apologized to my wife and my kids now. Like, you know, my family should be enough purpose for me to want to drive forward every day. I love my family, hands down, but it just wasn't. There was still a void in my life. I didn't have. I mean, I looked down the dark tunnel. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, so it's just like, all right, what the hell am I going to do? But started the podcast, and just being able to be on the other side of the table and watch people just pull some of that out, just free up a little bit more room. Oh man. But it helps. It helps me. It helps in my healing. But now when I look down, I see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not bright. It's not like super bright, but I know there's something there, and every day that just gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and eventually it'll just be an open tunnel, and I'll have full light. But that's just being optimistic, but I don't know how long that'll be.
And see where you're going. You know, like if you're looking at, like, when you come home, what's your purpose? When you have someone telling you exactly what your purpose was, you knew where you stood.
Yep.
You knew, and now it's when you get that choice and stuff, it's, I don't know where to turn. Where is the light? I don't even know which direction to look right now. I'm sure is really hard. And then all of that, we just put it into words fantastically, right? But if you're trying to share that with a piece of that with your spouse, the closest person who you probably are wanting to be strong for, who you do trying to still navigate that relationship with, how do you say that in so many words? Well,
and to protect them, right?
Yeah.
So that's me. I'm feeling like I have to protect her from, you know, stories that, you know, it's hard for me to process, and I was there, but let alone, okay, now you have no military knowledge. You have no traumatic experience in the taking of lives or the mass casualties or stuff like that, to where, now, how can I, if I tell you, how are you going to relate? You're probably not, and you're going to look at me and go, you I already beat myself up over incidences that I've had to put myself through and to make sure that me and my soldiers got taken, went home safe. But we literally have a fraction of a blink of an eye to make a decision.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to live with that for the rest of our life. But if I tell you, now you have a chance to sit back, armchair quarterback it, and go, well, you should have done X and Y and Z, and I would have done this different and this different. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to look at me different. So in my mind, now in my wife's mind, she's like, no, that's not it at all. And I'm like, but I have a mask on. So you see this, you don't see what's behind it, and then we're good. Well, and that don't work.
Right. Yeah. Well, obviously, that's why so many people struggle with relationships when they come home or struggle with PTSD. How do I even tell you? And you're usually the person that sees me every day. So if you can't see that I'm wearing a mask is good enough, right? Until it's not.
Yep.
But, and who says when you're telling your spouse that they don't understand what it's like to be in these combat situations or anything, who says that they have to be?
Yeah.
They don't have to understand anything. Just being able to sit and listen non-judgmentally and just be that person that you get to talk to. But who's showing us that? Where's the training? Where's the briefing on that? Right.
So there's not. And that's something that, my last episode I had a firefighter out of Texas. And during our conversation, with the military, you have the VA, you have the vet centers. Different states are good or bad with the VA. It just depends on luck of the draw, really. But for first responders, they don't have that. They don't have anything. And I think he said the statistic was 80% of our firefighters and EMTs that are volunteers. So they have nothing.
Yeah.
So that's something we're looking at trying to work with. And
it's almost like we need to transition from like a VA to like an FRVA.
Yeah, a civil service VA or something to that effect.
That not only serves those who are in the line of service, but their partners.
Yeah.
Some classes, some, anything, literature. Do you know of any supports? I don't.
No.
I know there's a lot of like Army wife support groups and like Facebook groups and stuff, but that's really as far as I know. Obviously, I don't.
It's funny that you mentioned that because when I was in the reserves, my unit
We're gonna pop the door. It's a little warm in here.
A little warm. My unit had a family readiness group, the FRG, and I eventually got to a point where it became such a stressor. And then when my family would show up to drill type weekends, now all the other military personnel there were mission focused. And they would basically ruin my family's time there with their mission.
Yep.
And I would ruin my family's time there with my mission.
Yep.
And so I eventually was like, I don't want you on that fucking call tree.
Yep.
I don't want you because the information is, by the time it gets to her, it's telephone gamed and skewed. And so she's hearing the wrong things. Or she's like just showing up to this event to stand out in the sun while my daughter's upset that I'm not coming over to her when she's calling for me and I'm standing in a grid of other soldiers while we take our final roll call or whatever. And I just sort of I was like, I'm not bringing my family to this anymore, which they then felt excluded.
Yep.
But I felt like I was protecting them, which is kind of the same exact thing that you were talking about. And it's I remember part of the reason that I finally joined because I had hesitation because of my family, or my dad and his experiences in Vietnam, was a friend of mine went to basic training or he went to boot camp for the Marine Corps. And I had a bunch of conversations with him and he was like, dude, if you really want to know what it's like, go fucking do it. Like, I'm never going to be able to translate this to what you speak. So I did it. And it felt like there was a bridge or a gap that needed to be bridged between me and other people in my life because they didn't understand what it was like. Like, no one understands what it's like to be like, oh yeah, I'd do the gas chamber again. I mean, it sucked, but I'd go,
I'd do it again.
I'd go through it again. No big, dude, my sinuses have never been clearer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So communication with family. How do you even talk to your family? How does your family support you when you're going through other things? Or did they even have any Like, were there red flags that they were supposed to be aware of when you came home? You were saying that there was a briefing, like coming home from your deployment, that you were like, you're not listening to because you're just so excited to see your family.
You want to get home. I mean, I have one thing on my mind, right? Like, the first thing I want to do is I want to go get reacquainted with my wife and just go right to Pound Town, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's just be real. like that was my new mission when I get home. So you sit in the briefings, they're like, okay, it's going to be a little weird. You're going to, whatever, dude, whatever. We're fine. Check a box. And the people telling you, the people doing the briefings and the trainings, they're checking a box. So it's just a whole bunch of people checking the boxes. I feel that if someone like myself, a tattooed guy, was up talking to people and saying, hey, look, you're coming home. This is real shit. Like, I'm not your NCO. I'm not your officer. I have nothing to do with you. This is just me, and this is what I experienced, and be ready because it's going to come, and it's going to come really, really fast. I think more people are going to be more receptive to something like that rather than just go and check a box because the person giving the briefing doesn't care, doesn't want to be there, and the people that are in the room don't want to be there.
It's probably the third time he's repeated that exact slideshow that day.
Well, even timing. You know, when you're going through basic training, was there training about how to come home? No?
Nope.
You know, and like, why don't we preventively start having those conversations early on when you're gone? How do you have conversations with people at home? This is something you can watch for. Here's a checklist to send to your family. These are some red flags to watch for. I don't know. As simple as that. With all the money and all the time that we put into training our servicemen and women, we're not thinking of this. And then look at all the grief that it's caused in your marriage and your family, everything.
Yeah, they teach you how to put on uniform.
Yeah.
They teach you what to do while you're in uniform.
But they don't teach
But there's no training for when it's time to take off the uniform.
Yeah, there's no exit strategy.
Nope.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that I did on my way out, and as I knew things were wrapping down because my injury had gone to boards and all that kind of thing, was I started talking to soldiers about like, hey, if you're going to continue doing this, one of the things I struggled with was not knowing whether or not things were financially taken care of at home. So I used my military training to get this job. And I want to help you get this job because when you transition out, you're going to want that income. And they all still I remember I kind of got this look like, what do you mean get out? What are you talking about? Like this ends?
Mm-hmm.
Well, your mission on hand. This is where your concentration is, the mission that's in front of you, right? You're not thinking of future things. So, you know, there's just, I think I find it fascinating and actually quite appalling that there wasn't any conversations around that, any prep, you know, just like you said, a quick briefing. You're not thinking about that.
Here's the other thing though, was there? Because
there might have been.
There might have been.
And then you weren't listening because
I was checking a box, and the people that were doing the 2-3 hour PowerPoint presentation, like literally.
Yeah, I would have checked out too.
Checked out, right? Like so.
Yeah, you get shoehorned into a room with no air conditioning with a guy who drones on.
Yep.
And like he doesn't even have to look at the slides. He's read them over and over again, and they're the same slides that they put out, and you know, I mean, some of them have
15 years before.
Oh. Yeah, like they're not very updated. Like, does that guy in the background is he wearing parachute pants? Like, how old are these?
These
slides?
are the people you're going to encounter when you come home. Be prepared.
That's JFK. You know, he's not the president anymore. Like, like I mean, you just you're like, dude, I want to fucking get out of here. I haven't been laid in 16 months, and my wife's been on the phone with me, and we've maybe sent a couple dirty letters back and forth or whatever.
Like, I'm ready.
And,
nothing else matters.
Get me the fuck out of here. Yeah. And then, you know, I mean, I know the bulk of the relationships that I saw coming home, most of them had that sort of like new relationship energy, but some of them didn't. Some of them had a real... Well,
I think the biggest thing everyone was always worried about was the infidelity. You know, who's cheated on who?
Yep.
Yeah.
What happened? How many times? You know, where's that neighbor's really good looking? You start worrying about that too. I'm sure.
Yeah. The worst possible thoughts come into both parties, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, if you're not able to call home for 3 days because you're out on missions or whatever, then your spouse is thinking, hey, what's he doing to where he's not calling? What is he doing this bad? Or If I try to call multiple times and I don't get a hold of you, my mind's automatically going, and it's wrong. It wasn't that I didn't trust her, but it was just,
it's human nature to think of those things.
100%.
Yeah.
It just, my mind just went to, well, this would make sense. So that has to be what's happening.
Well, I watched relationships change and grow. And I remember seeing that like people that were in constant communication of the opposite gender, you know, they always kind of seem to gravitate towards each other and sometimes end up in a relationship. And it impacted my current marriage in the sense that like when my wife had to leave for work for several months, I remember specifically like, these are the rules I want you to follow when communicating with people of the opposite gender. And because I've seen that, and
You're so funny that you were worried about the opposite gender.
Right. Yeah. No, it's funny now that, well, I wasn't. I actually told her that was okay. But, no. And so, I mean, like I've saw those relationships that build under stress, you know, in those environments. And then I was just like, I don't want you to do this, please.
Yep.
And then like, she was like, okay, I appreciate that. Well, she didn't realize where I was coming from in this sort of like hyped up, stressed out environment thinking, and then, you know, needed to do one of those things.
So how she
in a
was
very
kind of
innocent
like,
way.
okay, is definitely not the norm. Most women would be like, you don't get to control every little action. You're gone. I have to hold down the fort.
No,
how I hold
she
down the
was
fort,
gone.
you don't get to micromanage. I'm just saying,
Oh, yeah.
you know, either way, if roles were reversed, and I'm sure that's just like, there's more stress. So then you come home, maybe don't recognize the person, or maybe you do and try to pick up exactly where things left off. How often does that ever happen?
I mean,
You've both learned and grown and changed.
Yeah, you're both, it's brand new again. So you have to, well, and when you come home, it never dawned on me, but we were together. So she knew who I was before basic. Okay. I come home from basic and I'm a little bit different. So now she's on her second relationship with the same person.
Yeah.
So I go on my deployment, come home. She's now on her third relationship with the same person. And each time it's just, you know, and after getting home from Iraq and, you know, and I tried to talk to her, she shut the door, or so I thought shut the door. We just kind of start going our own ways, little by little by little by little. The communication isn't there. The built up resentment on both sides that just kind of went unsaid for many, many years. Then the assumptions come in. Well, I'm assuming that she's done this or she feels this type of way, so I'm just going to keep going this route that I'm on, and she's doing the same thing. Ultimately, I just tell everybody, you need to communicate.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, we're starting counseling now because of our communication has really been shit over the last few years, and I hope we haven't gone too far to where we can't reel it back in.
Yeah.
Right? I'm very optimistic that we're able to.
Look at the adversity you've already gone through.
Yeah.
You know, and you've gone through that by yourself.
Yeah.
So look how cool what you get to do together. Twice as strong, you know, when you guys are doing it together, right?
Yeah.
I think that's huge, you know, and even to be said, like my husband and I were just talking about that, like when we first started dating to me now, I was still such a child. I was 19. I was 20 when we met, you know, and I was like, just a different person. I have grown up with you and you've been there the whole time. Imagine if that was just even 16 months when you're in your early 20s, how many lessons you've learned, how different, you know, your opinions change quickly. So I couldn't even imagine it's a different person.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, just the same type of relationship. And then it's kind of when you say the resentment and you both probably recognized it, but it's like, is it worth bringing up and having a fight?
Yep.
Because that's what it
100%.
turns into.
Yeah.
Or is it better to just rip off that festering wound, you know, like let it air out and then see where we can go. But so
yeah, there's a lot of times I would just pick my battles and be like, this isn't a battle that's worth the argument over, so let's just shove
it down.
We'll put that one over in this. There's a little bit of room over here. Let's shove it into that space.
But it's kind of like the garbage piles in the movie Idiocracy. Like eventually they topple over and they'll slide through your back window.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I am still, my current wife never knew me in the military. And she is still sort of like suffering from that.
Oh yeah.
You know, in a weird way to speak. Like, I mean, I don't want to call it suffering because I'm really proud of my service. It's taken me a long time to be proud of my service. Like you talked about being hurt over not being able to complete my service wasn't as good as your service,
Yep.
right?
Wasn't worthy.
Yeah. And
Right.
I mean, I accomplished some cool stuff when I was in the military. I picked up some great skills and it's made me who I am today. It's changed the way that I function at work. And, but I mean, my wife still pays the consequences for it. Like, she wants to learn how to go shooting. And so I go to, it's the example I used with the black powder rifle in the backyard. When I say,
These are the steps.
do
Don't
this.
ask me why.
she goes, well, why? How does that work? It fucking works because it works, and don't ask any more questions. Do it.
But what if you do it this way?
Doesn't
Wouldn't
matter.
This be
You shut-
easier,
yeah.
more efficient?
And, like, at that
You
point-
shut up is what you were going to tell me.
What I just about did tell you to shut. Like, I just, like, literally just like, don't ask questions that you don't need to know the answer to. Just
Yeah.
fucking do what I told you and it'll work the way it's supposed to. And it was something as simple as just like, put on your ear pro. She was like, well, why? Why would I put it on now? And it was like, because you don't want to be messing around with it once I hand you a gun.
Yep.
So just
Yeah.
simple, even how to communicate. You have to kind of be able to navigate, different types of communication from versus I have a job to do. I know exactly what my job is. I need to tell you what to do. To now I'm home and I have a different job and it's not black and white. How do I even talk about that?
I still grind gears, sort of like switching from that military instructor to teaching my wife how to work a power drill.
yeah.
Yeah, that's my
yeah.
biggest pet peeve now is when you get that, well, why? Why? Because people die if you don't.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Because I fucking
but,
said
but
so.
Dad, it was just coloring on this paper. If you don't do it this way, people die. So just know if
Yeah.
you don't do it the way I tell you, just people die.
Well, when it's when you're in those hyped up adrenaline fueled combat situations, if people don't listen, they do die.
Yep.
So it's
And
needed.
it becomes very ingrained
And
in
then
you.
it's now automatic.
That once I start communicating, you shouldn't. The question is never why. The only question you should ever have is, "Huh? I didn't hear you."
Because you're hearing damage.
Yeah. Or
Yes, I know.
what?
We've-
Yeah, everybody teases me for my hearing damage. So funny to pick on the
And you're our
disabled.
sound guy.
Yeah,
Great.
and I'm hey, I'm doing all right.
And if he's not, you can let us know at saltysexcast@gmail.com and tell us our sound sucks.
Don't tell
kidding.
them. Come to me right at Twitter at saltysexcast. No, it's it like you get amped up on this like life or death communication, and the only question should be, "Sorry, what? I didn't hear you." It should never be why, because I fucking said
Yep.
so. Because I'm trying to protect you, or I'm trying to protect them. Yeah,
And
So-
you don't know how to change that teaching
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
subject matter that you're training. Like I coached Little League football, and I was like, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this, and I had parents saying, well, you're too hard on my kid. Practice starts at this time. If you show up at this time, chances are you're late. So this is on the parent, and then I'm making your kid do the extra push-ups or the extra running because you don't have your shit together and can't get them here. I look back and I'm like, oh, these poor kids.
the entire team suffers because of you.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I think is kind of a military thing. The entire team is now
Yep.
going to suffer because you fucked up.
Yep.
And I might not necessarily make your kid run the laps, but the other kid will run laps for him.
That's why I never played team sports. I was like, fuck you, I'm out.
I have to wonder if that comes from a military thing, because I know that when you look at Hollywood, like the director is treated like a 5-star.
Yep.
And like you don't talk to certain people on set. And like I have difficulties at work communicating with my bosses because like even though we're in a good friendly working relationship, I never take a problem directly to who I should. I do the chain of command.
Yep.
Right?
That's the way I do it.
Yeah, at one point my HR rep was like, "Well, have you ever met so and so?" And I was like, "I have not." And he goes, "Well, why haven't you? Like you've been at all the same parties." And I was like, "If he wants to talk to me, he'll come talk to me.
Yep.
It's not my place as a lowly grunt to
Yep.
go talk to the general.
Yep.
Ever."
So communication is a
Yeah.
huge piece. You were just saying
It's a big
for
deal.
for relationships and being someone who's coming back or going through really hard times and traumatic things that you see in here. Communication is a great one for relationships. But not the communication Brady just described.
No, it's something that you have to work on.
You
Yeah.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to remember or at least be, coherent of how am I coming off?
Yep.
Am
Well,
I being regimented? Am I even leaving room for emotion?
I've had to go back to Jamie, and this was within like a couple of hours of the incident, but I've had to go back and apologize and say, you're not one of my soldiers, and I'm sorry, but this is why I asked you to do that. And I know that's why, you were asking the question why, and I didn't want to answer it at the time. A switch flipped and I was in instructor mode.
Yeah.
Corporal is what I was. Corporal instructor. I was out. I was a subject matter expert, and you didn't listen. And so at that point, the training exercise was done. There's no point in talking to you.
Yep.
And that wasn't fair to you because you're not Private Jamie. You're my wife.
See, and that's where I'm at now, is trying to still find that switch, because I mean, I'm so desensitized. Like I go get tattoos because that's the only feeling I feel. So I just have to keep getting the ink, because I'm like, okay, yep, I'm still alive. I can feel this, right? So that's something that I'm working on. My wife's like, I need more emotion. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is anymore. Like, I don't know emotion. Like, I know anger, and that's it.
Anger
Which
and
is a
sleep.
secondary emotion.
Well,
yeah.
sleep, I don't know. I mean, I get an hour and a
to
half, 2 hours of
recognize
sleep
it.
a night for the last 15 years.
Hunger comes
Yeah.
in sometimes to it. No, like
Horning. Yeah, we know those emotions here.
It's a weird thing, because it's, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, I can't find that switch. And it's funny because I know when the switch comes on, but
You
I
can't
can't
find the
fucking turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not. It's sort of like the switch to on is a hair trigger, but the switch to off, you got to get 2 security guards on other ends of the rooms with the special keys.
The codes.
And they got to
put
turn them at the
in.
same time, and then the president's got to call in with his code from the football.
You're so spot on.
Yeah.
And I've been looking for a way to explain this right here, this conversation to my wife, but I can't find the words, and that's
Yeah.
TBI, the traumatic brain injury. So that obviously doesn't help, right?
Yeah,
So,
that definitely doesn't help. It changes the way your brain functions.
Well,
yeah,
and-
so it's like if you picture the on switch as Mount St. Helens, and then the off switch is the Grand Canyon. Like, you really have to wear through that sandstone to, like, I have to come back down. It's almost like an adrenaline dump.
yeah.
When
Well,
my
you
wi-
weren't even saying, like, find emotion, right? And you were saying, yeah, I'm happy. This is kind of when
Yep.
you're going, you didn't even recognize what happy looked like.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just
knew
said it because
if I
that's what
act
other
this
people,
way,
yeah.
people think everything's good. So I'll
That was
just
a
keep doing this
surface
because
act.
you guys think that this is what I should be at.
Yeah, it's going to take time. But that's really, really exciting. And I, look forward to seeing that growth.
I want
and
to take a
for
moment and
both
point
of you.
out he is far better at recognizing when I have hand signals to give than you are. And I wonder why that is.
I see it at the corner of my eye, sir, and I can watch the time on that. I don't need you.
But I get
Why?
like a nonverbal.
But why do I need your hand signals when I can see that?
My cheeks just got warm.
I'm gonna get it.
No, it's funny. Like, I get an acknowledgement from him that I don't get from you. And I always wonder if you've noticed.
No, I noticed the hand signals, but if I look at you when you're actually doing them, then I'm like, what of it?
Yeah. You
Oh,
are,
I have to, like,
You
it
are
takes
kind of
me
squirrel.
Yeah. Oh, big time squirrel. There was a mosquito just seconds ago, and I was like, oh no, it's gonna
and
get me.
I think it's funny. I mean, you talked about you joined 2 years before I did. The fact that you and I can sit down from across the room and I immediately get that body language from you and I pick up on that.
It's ingrained.
If I try to take
guys
that,
are-
if I tried to take that into the living room tonight to sit down and watch a movie with my wife, no fucking clue. And then I end up frustrated, like, well, now I got to train this soldier from the ground up because she doesn't fucking know her mission. She doesn't understand the objective. And then you're frustrated and they pick up on that. And like,
See, and I think that right there is why the podcast has gone so successful, because I can literally sit across from someone, whether it's in person or over Zoom, never met them in my life, but I can have a more detailed, in-depth conversation with them than I can have with the person I've been married to
yeah.
for, we're going on 20 years now.
Well, within 5 minutes, you and I have chewed. Within 5 minutes of meeting, I found out you and I chewed the same dirt.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I spent time in Leonardwood, and you're like, yeah, I'm not a big fan. I'm like, fucking know what you mean. Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. I know. Like, I can smell it. I know exactly.
Yeah, like,
I know
it's-
exactly what you mean.
It's crazy, the camaraderie with people from the military, even if you've never met them. But I know, okay, this guy, he signed on the same dotted line I did. So I know that
Yeah.
if shit's ever going to go down, I know I don't have to I don't have to worry about him. I just have to, I'm going to watch over here because I know he's watching over here.
Yeah.
So it's a calming.
And as a spouse, seeing that connection that you've never met, I'd be like, what am I not bringing?
What am I doing wrong?
What am I not bringing to the table? Why am I getting treated so differently and put?
I have to wonder that, as you say that, I have to wonder if anyone's ever tried simulating it for a spouse. And I'm not like it would not work for me to try to do basic training in my backyard with Jamie.
Well, not with you telling her what it is.
Right, exactly. But if I could send her away for 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Spouse training?
To like a spouse camp for soldiers. Or Marines or airmen. I don't want to exclude anyone.
Maybe not like completely, stay there or something. But I couldn't do it. I think that there should be more training and things available to spouses to understand, to be there, to feel like...
But I can tell you, I already know what it looks like when he walks out of the room with his tray, like his drinks, right? And like there's a firm understanding there, and that ability to not to communicate without words.
Do you need that though to have a healthy romantic partnership with somebody?
I don't think so, but I feel like a little understanding to the kind of chaotic environment that you got taught to communicate in.
But like I said. But then we have to do, as a spouse, do we have to fully understand what you went through to still support you, to still listen?
No, I don't think so.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
where I think the biggest miscommunication is. And I'll say that even without experience, because I do see exactly where it's happening, because it is. It's so sad to see that happening. And, if you were giving one advice, you were saying communicate.
Yeah.
And watch how you're communicating, right? Is there anything else that you'd say, even for spouses or partners of those who are in the line of service? You
got to surround yourself with like-minded people. Don't surround yourself with the people pleasers that are only going to tell you what you want to hear and just fuel whatever negative shit you're feeling. Unfortunately, I think that causes more problems. But so we started on our IGY6 Facebook page, we have a private group for military and first responders only. So it's a safe space that we can go in, talk about whatever it is, and we know our wives or spouses cannot see it. It's just for the military and first responders. The success with that was going so good, we started a spouses one, right? Because a lot of these spouses, like with us, we don't know what we don't know, right? So we're trying to figure out post-traumatic stress. We're trying to figure out why we're broken and how do we not be so broken. But our wives are trying to figure out, what can I do to help? Well, I don't even know. I can't even tell you how I'm fucked up. So how
am I supposed to tell you?
I can't tell you how to help me. But this wife or this husband has been with their wife for 10 years and they do this and it works. Perfect. Let's open the channels of communication with everybody we need and
the community support.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's fantastic. You are doing something that is really needed for so many people.
If people wanted to listen, where would they find you?
Any platform other than YouTube at this point. So Apple, Spotify.
Is it just IGY622 or?
It's on the hat, sir.
IGY622.
It's on the shirt.
Okay.
www.IGY622.com.
Which stands for I got your six.
Yes.
And so that's a military term for I've got your back.
Yep.
I'm telling that for people who don't know.
I'm pointing to my back because I knew I was so proud.
Yeah, I'm super proud of you. You caught on to it, but not everybody knows what it means.
No, I didn't. I had to get it for a second, and just being there, supportive, nonprofit.
Yeah.
So you guys are giving back to those who need that service.
Correct. Yeah. So as doing the podcast, I would hear different soldiers or first responders say, "Hey, this nonprofit helped me. It changed my life. It saved me." Perfect. Now I'm reaching out to that nonprofit to learn more about them, to bring them on the show, to bring awareness, right? Because when I was struggling, I called the big name nonprofit that everybody knows. And I said, "Hey, look, I'm struggling. I see you guys help with this and this and this. We've already helped everybody we're helping this year.
Come back next year.
But let me send you a t-shirt."
Wow.
This was February. In February, they were
didn't
done.
Share resources. They didn't get referrals.
They wanted to send me a shirt and said, "If you ever have problems, call the suicide hotline."
And that's not an answer for you.
No.
When you are just brave enough to recognize, I need help, I'm going to go here.
Yeah. So that's kind of what started our nonprofit is we're finding all these amazing organizations that are doing a lot of good in the community. Well, we don't need to reinvent a wheel. We can just raise money. I now have a platform that I can help provide more money to these other nonprofits that are doing amazing things. We actually just partnered up with Warrior Risen Ranch up in Morgan, 6,500 acres. We have free range up there to do whatever we want. So our next event, we're putting together a week-long retreat for disabled veterans, first responders, battling PTSD, and we're also bringing in CEOs of major corporations. So the CEO and veteran are going to pair together and do tasks around this ranch, whether it be mending fence, whether it be
I love that.
herding
I bet the
cattle.
communication styles will actually be pretty similar between the
It'll be
CEO.
similar, but what it'll do for the veteran is it'll learn from the CEO of how to be a better employee, how to be more employable, how to do, and then vice versa from the CEO going, wow, these guys, we need, it's just going to be amazing.
They need our help and they need our support.
Yeah.
And because I mentioned
You're not
to
a
you,
box checked on this application.
Yep.
You're a real person.
Yep.
well, I mentioned to you early on in the podcast that one of the things that I struggled with was a transition into work.
Yep.
And I have saved all of the emails where I've been told you can't talk to people like that, or maybe be less aggressive. And it was like my first transition into like middle management. I fucked up, and I legit now I know I can't do that. But it was sort of like, you're wrong. Fix your fucking shit.
Yep.
And then like I moved on. I was no longer mad at that guy. He thought about it for fucking weeks before he called the boss.
Well, and you probably were never even mad. You had to
I wasn't
be
mad.
act
Yeah, I wasn't even mad.
urgently, And yeah,
It
You're
was
like,
just
hey,
like-
you messed up. Go over there, take 5, unfuck yourself, and go back to work.
Fix it and get the fuck on with your day. And then I move on, and he's over there like, oh, bro, I've never been yelled at like that before. Like, oh, he hurt my feel goods. And I'm just like, I'm not even thinking about it anymore. I'm off on the other
I'm
thing.
over it.
Yeah, and the boss calls and he's like, hey, did you tell so-and-so to unfuck himself today? And I was like,
you had to
yeah, I
about
think
it.
so. Now that I think about it, I might have said unfuck yourself, but what I meant was, put your safety glasses on. And he goes, yeah, you can't tell people to unfuck themselves. I get that they're adults, but you're now a manager, not something you can say. And your emails, could you be a little more polite? And it was like,
when you weren't even
what did I say that wasn't polite?
just direct.
I just typed and said, hey, I need this. Can you do that? Bye.
Yeah.
And then my automatic
Would
corporate
you maybe
signature.
Please do this, and then
Now I've learned that I've got to say, hey, how you doing? I hope all is well. Don't get the COVID. So super important for me to be able to do my function if you have the time.
But this is at
Could you
work
do
where they're
this?
checking you with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And your father, was it your father or father-in-law?
My dad.
Yeah,
Yeah, your dad pulled you aside and said,
Check
hey,
you.
bro.
Put the mirror right in
But how
my
many
face.
times does that really actually happen? Or how many times maybe a spouse is trying to, but it comes off the wrong way and blows up?
Or
Man, we can do so much better. We can do better. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're doing better. Thank you so much for your service and
it's been great.
for the service that you're providing for all those who are providing service for us.
so we can go
That's
to
important.
just any major platform.
Any major
and
platform.
and type in IGY622.
622. Yep.
And it'll pop right
We'll
up.
pull it right up.
And then do you have a website or anything like that?
So we're
I
in
imagine
we're in
you're
the
working
works.
on it.
We just had someone that said that they will donate our website. So they're building our website right now.
Nice. For a nonprofit.
For the
that's great.
nonprofit. Then
Yeah.
we'll have links for, the podcast and the different events that we have going and different ways to donate.
That's awesome.
We picked up a sponsor that is going to do either a percentage or a monetary amount of every roofing job his company does is going to the nonprofit.
Wow.
So that will help with operating costs.
Are you
and
allowed to say
everything
who
else.
they are?
Yeah, it's SOS Roofing out of Roy, Utah.
Okay. SOS
So-
Roofing out of Roy, Utah.
All of our northern Utah folks,
I know where I'm getting my next roof.
you got a roofer.
This one's 7 years old.
Hey, it's
Almost
time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not time. You really should be able to.
You just
last
had
a
me
few more
panicked.
years.
I was like, oh my God, my house is like 20 years old. Jesus, you guys.
No.
I mean, yes, it is. Your roof is about gone.
Okay,
It's
I
time.
have
I
a
went to
friend
your
in the-
house before to pick up the
Oh, yeah, you did.
the item you donated for our raffle. So thank you guys for that. And your partner's not here, so I can't thank her
Pamela,
personally.
yes. Uh-huh.
But yeah, that was amazing. The raffle turned out great. I cannot believe how much money we raised.
It was a fun event.
Yeah,
you let us know next time we can support you.
Oh, 100%. I will
Podcast
definitely.
is there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. If you ever feel like throwing a soiree for your constituents, whatever you want to call them, supporters. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they're called. I haven't listened to the podcast yet, and I should have. But yeah, you're welcome to use the studio and the back lot.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I
you're welcome
appreciate
to.
it.
Well, a bonfire.
Yeah, we'll do a bonfire.
perfect.
We need
do a little bit
bonfire.
of shooting in the backyard.
Hey, I love it.
Yeah.
I just live down the road, so it's
Do you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I just built a new AR-50. You've probably heard me.
yeah.
So we have gone over time because Brady has fanboyed the whole time. No, just kidding. Not at all. I love that. Really, that connection was there.
Yeah.
So just for me to see that, I'm not even your spouse, and I'm like, well, I feel left out, guys. Go.
Yeah, we don't even need you. You could just go. I'll wash his back in the shower. I've known him for 5
my
minutes.
There you go. Gotta love it.
Yeah. So
We'll get a couple of
communication.
scorpions, have them fight in a bowl.
Yep.
And remember, you don't have to understand what your spouse is going through or has gone through to still support them, to still let them feel heard and listened to. And for all else, there's resources out there. There's podcasts out there.
Follow us on if you're military, first responder, or family members. Go to the IGY622 Facebook page and go to the groups and select whatever category you fall under. I just started TikTok, so that's been fun. And Instagram, it's IGY622_podcast on Instagram. And that's the same as on TikTok too. And TikTok has been, I am now realizing it's more than just a shake your ass app. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of military on there that are struggling, that are taking that first step and saying, hey, I have something's wrong, and they're putting it out for everybody. So it's a great platform for me to reach out and talk to people. And I mean, it's just been amazing. So
you're amazing. Thank you so much for what you've done for so many people in need for this service and spreading that word and being vulnerable yourself here today. I know it's not easy to talk about.
I was a little
all
nervous.
That.
I was like, I'm so nervous to go. And my wife's like, why? Why are you nervous? I'm like, because this is like a feeling one. Like, this is like, I get to talk about feelings, and I don't like to talk about feelings, but it was very comfortable. So thank you guys. You made it very, very comfortable for me, and it was a good experience.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. And everybody else, if they want to join in the conversation, you can reach out at saltysexcast@gmail.com.
Boom.
Meet us on Facebook. Come say hi. Follow us. Give us a listen on Apple Podcasts. But while you're there, go ahead and give us a review. Tell us what you really think of us.
On that
I'd love to hear
specific
it.
platform, right?
I get off on those comments. So please give me some more love.
Oh, shit. I'm going to have to buy an apple.
Brady just out there. I loved it. Anyway, love you all. Thanks for listening. Stay sexy and salty. Bye.
Yeah. And what's puberty?
Puberty? Well, puberty's a lot of things. Here's the piece.
When you hear about it first, it sounds very strange.
Oh, if it really bothers you, you should see a doctor. Then at puberty, certain glands begin to work, and our bodies begin to change. It enlarges the penis itself.
And there's a center opening between those two, which is called the vagina.
The sex education you wish you had in high school.
Maybe a diagram will help.